All right. Greetings, everyone, here at TPLA. We're back, and as you properly socially distanced, we have Vornak with me. So we have a little group thing. It's been a very long time since we've been doing this, so we're just going to do a couple of little points here, and for everybody out there, and you can see how far we backslid during this whole thing. So, without further ado, okay. As people are coming in here, also notice we are properly masked. Not to exercise without a mask. It's perfectly okay. The reason we're out of breath is not because of the mask. Yes. Quarantine has had its effects. Okay, so let's see here. Let's try the other camera here. Maybe get a better field of view, even though it's a little washed out. All right, shall we? Oh, he fell. You can't hit a downed opponent. You're right. Right. Don't hit a downed opponent. That was my fault. Right. Oh, should have dodged. I'll do one more. We seem to be falling apart. Good. All right. Pretty hot out. bad. And I'll practice. Up. Okay. Okay. We have everybody in there. All right. So, as you see, that was just a little kind of going back and forth with the ASL FFE rule set. We are going to be doing a certification workshop at the end of August. So check out our Facebook and our website and stuff like that for that information. What I wanted to go over today was we were going to look at Form 2, the stuff that's in there, and show how it kind of applies to all of what we're doing. So, you know what? I'm going to keep this on because I'm going to keep the jewels safe. Anyway, so this is not so hot. Okay, so as you saw, we were doing a couple of things there. One of the things we were doing was feinting a whole lot. We're trying out different things with feinting. We'll go into that more when we get into the workshop and stuff like that. But what we'll talk about is Form 2, which is the dueling form. Now, in ASL FFE, we have priority and we have arming. So we're just going to move those over aside, and we're just going to talk about the technique. Just talk about the fencing technique. Just talk about, you know, the kind of raw thing. When you do ASL rule set, you must arm engagement, right, or simple, right? And that might seem like it kind of flies in the face of what Makashi is all about, right? Form 2, which is, you know, small, tight movements and stuff like that, and not a whole lot of this, right? True, you could say that, but since we do not have the stab, it's not going to be that big of a deal, because what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to learn how to cut with Makashi, right? Whereas we're used to doing this kind of stuff right there, and we only have a few little cuts, but most of these are parries. We're going to show you how to cut. So the basic formula we start out with is, of course, our moon guards, right? So we do our 3 at first, right? We got our half moon, we have a full moon, and a new moon. Okay. Now these go in front of us. Let me see if, I don't know if we have, some people are having some problems getting in here. Okay, so, all right. Anyway, so continue. I'll put a glove on. The basic idea behind the moon guards in the way that we can apply them pretty much in anything. So if you're doing like Saber Legion, where you don't have to worry about arming, this is going to be very good for you as well, right? Anybody that does our stuff can pretty much do any rule set they want, because it's just a matter of slipping those little things in. So if you're doing FFE or ASL, remember the arming. If you're doing TSL, remember the length of the hilt and all that kind of stuff, or whatever. If you're doing light speed, remember those rules, all that kind of stuff. We're just talking about raw technique, what you're doing with this particular tool. So let me come up here. Okay, so notice still, socially distanced. Yes. All right. So, yes. Okay. So, half moon here, right? Obviously, this is a good ready position. Our blades are kind of between us, all that kind of thing. Um, the thing you have to worry about here is, of course, the hand is very vulnerable, right? So if we're sitting here like this, he can pretty much just snipe my hand real easy, and I can do the same thing. So that's where the other moon guards come in. So if he goes for my hand, and I'm going to move up into another guard, which is going to move my hand away and keep my blade right where it is. You see? So if he goes, right? Now, you can go on either side of his blade. So if he wants to, if he's coming over this way, I can drape it over that way. If he comes to the same side, just come to the same side. I can also do it this way where he's on the outside, right? It all depends on, I mean, how quick you are, you know, if you can get it there. But also, if he comes in here and I go down like this, I've kind of opened him up on this side because now he's off the line. If we turn just a little bit, he's off the line so that when I come over here, he's just a little bit out of position, right? And that can give me the thing. Now, here. At this stage, we're just worried about this movement. He can do this movement and pretty much parry anything that I, right? We've been inside for a while. So these are very, very useful. Now, where you're going to come out of those, right, is what's going to happen. Now, if you're just doing regular stuff, if you're thinking about like regular swords and you want to put these things to like steel swords and things that flex, then thrusting is perfect, right? Because if he comes in from my hand and I come down here, I can thrust right in there. We don't do that though, because these hurt. So we're going to cut. When we're cutting from these positions, it would be this. He comes down here like this, and then I come around like this. You see? So it's cutting here like this. And that's, of course, using the photosphere, like we say in the other things. So I can cut from up here into the half moon, right? I can cut from here and all of that. What that just means is I'm going to have to bring and wield the weapon at the hand and the hilt so that it brings it around like that. Right? So if I go through his hand, he can do the same thing. And so on and so forth. Right? It's a very, very simple thing. It's an extremely high percentage technique. Right? If you can learn how to when he's coming in to parry up and come back down, you can get a lot of points that way, right? You're just using positioning, footwork, and that simple technique, right? Regardless, even if you're going up against somebody very experienced, that will allow you to keep going because if he comes in and I go here, he has to parry, right? Boom, he has to parry to protect himself there. And when he comes in, I got to do the same thing, right? And that way, that way, anyway, so back. You see, this forces them to act, right? Now, in any rule set, you can use what's called second intention, right? Which means you can feint. That's what we were doing a lot in the sparring session. But you can also throw attacks to him that you know that he can deal with just to move them into position, right? So if we're here and he's constantly down in middle guard, I want to get him up, right? What I'm going to do is I'm going to start going back right here. See? I start to move him up here to where his attention is there, and then move it down, right? Move out of position, right? Remember, we're just demonstrating the blade work. Obviously, in real life, you have to be moving your body. Most of the time, when you saw us sparring, if you're coming in late, just go ahead and watch it after the fact. But if you noticed us, we're constantly moving around, either moving towards each other, a little bit offline, here or there. It might be difficult to see on camera, but it's three-dimensional space, even when we're dealing with this, right? So a good example would be here. If he attacks, I parry. Now I'm going to come in this way. I'm going to step here and come off the line to give myself a little bit extra open. He will respond in the same way to return to that line, you see, and deliver his own cut, right? Now, this is right on my line. It's very easy for me to parry. However, go back. Let's say he wanted to do something like feint in there. So he attacks first. I come over to here. Boom. He knows my intention is to come up here because this is the obvious hit, right? So he'll start from there. I'll commit to it, and he'll move down to the leg. See? Okay. All of this is possible because we've trained these positions, right? I can come out to any target from any of these positions, right? So that when you move through, if we go a little quicker, as soon as I commit to the parry, it's too late. And then even if I drop back down, I'll try to drop back down. Right. Okay. Can't quite do it, right? Most of the time what happens in there is we'll get a double hit, something like that. Unless your rule set, deals with that, you're just going to apply that particular rule if you get a double hit. But you can keep double hits to a minimum by doing two things, parrying and moving, right? Let's say, what's a better response in my, right, in my thing to that particular thing? He comes in, boom, boom, right? I can still parry up here, but if I step just a little bit out of measure, right, he's not going to be able to hit me. But I can then, right, you see, shift forward, and I'm still in range, right? But because you tend to be committed to that second strike in a feint, right? So if you're going up against somebody who is feinting a whole lot, my advice is to dodge, right? Is to wait for that feint, right? Wait for them to commit to a strike by swinging, get out of the way, stay out of measure, and then come in that way. That's probably going to give you a better thing. Okay, if you got any questions here. Okay, so do we have any questions? I'm looking through the thing here. I'm not seeing what's there. Okay.
So everyone understands this perfectly and has no question with them.
Yes. Hard to hit a moving target. Yes. So yeah. Do we have anything here? I will. Okay. Yeah. Make sure everybody's muted because I don't know if I'm getting if you're being shown while going out. Anyway, are we all good on that? Did everybody see that? Okay, yes. So yeah, second intention. Does the first attack have to be convincing?
I think all your attacks have to be convincing, including the feints. If you're trying to use a feint and it's not convincing, you are not feinting.
Yeah, I don't see how any strike is not convincing here, because the thing is that if we're going through here, well, let's just go through the up and down thing. If I'm going here like this, right, and I just stall, right, go ahead again. Ooh, ooh, ooh. You see, stuff like that. Does that first thing have to convince him of anything? No, not really. All I got to do is get him to feel like he should go to one place and then go to another, right? And that's actually really easy. Don't fret so much about that first thing, right? I hear this a lot. Every fate can be an attack if if it connects or whatever. No, a fate is a fate. A fate requires it requires commitment, right? If I'm coming here, it takes me commitment to change the direction of my strike and go for another target, right? If that strike misses, I'm kind of screwed, right? So feinting can be a risky proposition, as can anything in here. But even in second attention, do I have to hit him like that to get him to move to this parry position very hard or very convincing or any differently? Can I just, yeah, I think I can do that. And he'll parry anyway, right? So I wouldn't worry about that. Don't worry about that thing. What you want to do is you want to put it in where people will least expect it, right? And that requires a little bit of thought on your part. So you're not coming into an exchange and you're just bashing each other, right? Because then as soon as we start doing this a couple of times, he's going to change it up, right? Boom. And I'm done. Okay? That's not even a feint. That's just a change in intention right there, right? And that's another thing that you want to be able to do, is you want to be able to, as you're going through here, change up your strategies What? You see? So there's a good little sampling of parries, of dodges, movement, right? All of that stuff is coming in together, right? You don't want to skip on any of that stuff, because if you go into a fight without a good part of that stuff, sure, in that particular match, you may be able to make up for it in one other area, right? Because your opponent is deficient in some area as well, right? And you can capitalize on that. But if you're not, if you're evenly matched, right? You have to use these things. You have to use everything that you have available to you. Footwork, body work, blade work, all of that. Right? It's all extremely important. Okay. So yeah, let's see. We got here possible respond to a feint with a void and a parry a committed strike. Right. Well, I mean, yes, obviously you're going to parry. when I said try to void, that's if somebody is constantly fainting on you. Right. Feints are difficult to deal with, and that's why they're fun and why they're good to use, right? Because if you put them in the middle of a phrase, they're absolutely almost impossible to deal with. If you do it, let's say in ASL, if you do it off of an engagement arming, they're difficult. But from off an engagement arming, if somebody is constantly coming in and fainting or something like that, don't even attempt the parry. Just try to void and then jump back in, right? Now, the trick is going to be to figure out what angle they're coming in, so what door are they going to open that you can go in, right? And again, that takes a little bit of thought and look. But anyway, we acknowledge that sometimes that can be a thing. And when people are not using them correctly, or if it's a little bit like off kilter, or somebody is much better at it than the other person, and the other person just keeps falling for it, that can detract from match play. But generally speaking, it's something that we'd like to keep in there because it is fun, and it does keep it kind of mixed up. Dynamic. There we go. That's a good. Okay, so yeah, so there's the kind of basic idea. Whatever rule set we're doing, yeah. Okay, so I don't know what was going on today with people. I'm sorry for people who weren't able to get in. We are on a Zoom call. If you bought a ticket, you should have gotten an email. So check your email, check your boxes or whatever. But anyway, okay. Do we have any other questions as we're going forward here? Always reacting instead of acting. I wouldn't say that. I would say you want to have a good mix. You want to kind of stay in a kind of zone. Acting and reacting. Okay, so that's a good example. Actually, that's a good question. Let's go into that. What is acting? What is reacting? Acting is, right? I pick my target and I'm going to go for it, right? So in this case, I'm going to go for his zone 2 shoulder. As I come up here, there, he parries that, okay? So now, both of us have an intention, right? Both of us are technically acting, okay? Now, he has to react a bit to what I'm doing, right? Because if I'm going for this shoulder and he parries over here, that doesn't make any sense, right? So there is a little bit of give and take. But when you are defending, definitely try to react to the person, right? Don't act. And that is one of those things where we give off. So I think when we get into those like always this, always that, we want to be careful with that. There's never really an always this, always that, other than always keep your hands up and always guard your head. Right. But action and reaction are tricky things that you got to kind of toggle here between, right? So if we're cooperative, right? So we'll do the exercise here again. All right, this is just cooperative, okay? We're not trying to get each other. What we're trying to do is allow each other a little bit of time to practice different kind of techniques. What we can do here is you can say, as we're doing this, one of us just go low. Really, really. But you carry, so that's good. Right? Now you see how I did. I just, that's all I needed to get out of the rage. When we're here like this, and he goes down, all I got to do, bring this foot back, right? You see that a lot in Duan, right? Where we're coming back. Okay. You don't have to do all that fancy stuff, right? The real trick is being able to move in like that, you see? Same with picking up this leg, right? You see a lot of this, right? You hear a lot of this. Oh, you're unbalanced, you're on one leg. Not if you do this. If he goes for my leg, and I do that, and I've gotten the hit, doesn't matter if I'm unbalanced. I'll just put that foot down and walk away, right? So that's the basic thing. I have to be willing to react to what he's doing, but I also have to be vigilant to act on an opportunity that presents itself. Otherwise, even if it's not, he'll try to tag me in the knee. I won't try to do anything to him, and you'll see what happens here. Okay, so, right? You see, if I'm not acting, I'm never going to get a hit, right? If he opens himself up, I'm just going to let it kind of float on by, right? What I want to do is have a kind of state of readiness. Again, this is what training does. When you're training by yourself, you're dealing with those physical strains on your body. You're dealing with the positions, right? How many of you who have just started get sore in this position or this position? Like with your arms up like this, right? Can you stay in high guard indefinitely? Or do you have to come down to rest, right? You'll see that. All of these forces are still working on you, even in a fight, right? So when you're going on like that, you have to be able to react to what's happening, but you also have to be able to act on opportunities given to you. So
to add an example, a good piece of that would be with the engagement on each person is deciding are they going to do it or not, and the one who's deciding not to is doing so specifically to react to look for what the openings are being presented on the other person's initiative. So,
correct. Yep. Because in that, when you're dealing with priority, you have the added layer of strategy in that you have to figure out, oh, hey, you have to go, you have to get in on the other guy while maintaining the rule of priority, right? So you can use that to your advantage. You know that he's going to be required to do this. When you do an engagement arming, one person does decide, here, I'm going to go, right? The other person, okay, I'm going to see what you're going to do. This is where, and then of course, second intention comes in, right? So all of this stuff has to be layered, right? And it has to be drilled and into your head so that you don't have to expend effort to do that, right? You can formulate that strategy as you're going through some things. Good. Yeah. Right? And that's what you get. Hopefully. All right, let's see what else we got here. Okay, here's a good point. Was that one of the main philosophical takeaways from the Shicho practice of not retreating, always looking for the opportunity to advance? Yes. When you start out with Shicho, especially if you've never done this before, your your tendency is going to want to be to back up, right? Always. When you really need to start coming forward, right? You start that whole process when you do Shicho, because everything's going forward. You're looking for things, you're kind of intercepting attacks, and you're coming in while they're still working on it, right? So you're wedging yourself in, you know, all of that. Okay. Again, okay, so can we address gaining and maintaining the initiative as it applies to both Form 1 and Form 2? Okay, yeah. So let's do this. And actually, go ahead, because that was asked here on the chat. Go ahead and ask that question. Was it Jeff? Did you go ahead and ask that question? We can get a little bit more detail.
Hello, sir. I was just asking about gaining and maintaining the initiative, and this kind of relates to my first question, which I think I didn't convey it correctly, but you spoke to it anyways, about a commitment in the feint versus a skilled and unskilled fighter and getting the response. And so it seems to me Form 2, you know, as a dueler's form, kind of really wants to go from being, you know, reactive to proactive, and as much as possible keeping your opponent on their heels and then being reactive. And I was just wanting to get your take on that and how that applies, both also with Form 1 as well.
Yeah, I would say that is probably that the aggressive turn to keep the other people backing off and all that kind of stuff would be more consistent with Shicho, whereas with Form 2, we also have the ability to draw the other person in, right? Of course, this is, you know, again, we go back to second intention, go back to all that kind of thing. But the idea with Shicho is that you're trying to gain ground and you're not going to give it up, right? The only reason that the form goes in two ways is because of the basic, you know, length of your space, right? You're going to have to turn around at some time. But those turns, of course, are also very important. With Form 2, and if we're starting out here like this, okay, right? When he comes in, right, we may want to, you see, separate like this a little bit. See, reorient, all that kind of thing. Whereas you're not going to do so much of that in Shicho. You're going to be going forward most of the time. So if he's using Form 2, I'm using Form 1, it would be the same kind of thing, would be like this. His job now is to guide me where he wants me, right? He knows I'm not going to back up, or at least it's going to be very difficult for me to back up, right? So what he's going to do is he's going to start circling around me. He's going to make it difficult for me to stay in that forward momentum, right? As far as like maintaining the initiative over another person, that is a much more difficult proposition to train. I would say, and my advice is to work on your basics, work on first intention first, work on your feints, basically everything in our four pillars, our first four forms, right? Work on that stuff first, because everything that comes off of that is going to be built by your experience in doing that and your comfort level with those particular techniques. Can you throw these things out and have them be useful, you know, adding moments notice? So that would be my, does that answer? Yeah, okay. Cool. So by your experience in doing that and your comfort level with those particular techniques, can you throw these things out and have them be useful, you know, adding moments to things? So that would be my answer. Does that answer? Oh, that was me. Okay. I'm getting feedback here. Okay. I'm thinking somebody's talking to me. That's my voice coming back at me. Okay. All right. Do we have any other questions here? Oh yeah, go ahead. Are you still?
Oh, sir, this is kind of a bigger conversation, but I was wondering about, can you speak to the four pillars? And since we're looking at form 2 and how the forms speak to each other, both as extrapolations of each other, but also as counter expressions of each other.
Yeah. So we set them up as a kind of a progression. The only exception is form 3 and 4, which you can pretty much swap in and out because they're basically different attitudes and interpretations of the same movements. So you learn the defense of it once, and then you learn the attack of it next. So that's that. Now, let's go here. If okay, so oops, let me get a bigger picture here so people can see us. Okay. So our Shicho, let's just take the footwork and the idea here. Shicho gives us, right, our basics here too. So if I'm going here, I'm using Shicho with my hut slides like this. When he comes in with an attack, I'm going to use my 3-phase step, right? Okay. You see? We take this idea, right, of when he attacks, you see I'm covering myself up and I'm going to go over here to attack, right? We're going to take that and then we put it out in front of us. So now it's here. So when he does the same thing, I can stay further away from him and I have different techniques available to me. I can still go forward and cramp them, right? I can still use those Shicho principles, and you should, okay? When you get into Saresu and Ataru, now you're getting into spinning. You're going to take those things. So my pivots here, let's say he's going to go around this way. So boom, boom, boom. Okay, that's Makashi. Now, or form 2. Now we'll do form 3 and 4. Go ahead. Boom, 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 boom. Okay. You can arm like that if you want to, if you're doing ASL. If you don't want to arm, we'll do it without the arming. Right, boom, boom, boom. Okay. Sometimes, actually, try to get a little bit more ground on. Okay. You see? So where he's going to be coming in, I can then sidestep, go down, get off the line, right? All of that. And I'm going to be using more of that kind of stuff, right? And then with Ataru, you're just doing the same thing, right? Here, 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 wow. Right? Whatever you want to do, right? So that's kind of like in a nutshell. Why is it so important to know all of the forms? In our system, again, it's a progression. So we've laid out things so that you're getting different skills in different forms. That's the reason for us. If people want to create a whole martial art based on a taru, it's going to diverge from canon because canon descriptions are very limited, right? Full things. So that's why it's important for us, right? Can you adjust your fight? Do you want to adjust your fighting style to another person? Yes. Is there a blueprint for what you do? No. You're just going to say, okay, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do this. Hey, that works really well. That's the kind of adjustment you're going to need, right? This idea that learning lots of techniques is going to make you unpredictable and all this other stuff is a complete and utter myth. If you put too much stuff in the pot, you're not going to get soup. It's just going to burn. And that's essentially what you're doing there. You can do a lot with a little. In my martial art, in Masa Tongbe, we have a saying, train 10,000 to use but one. So you train many, many techniques. Even though you know you're only going to use a handful of them in any particular thing. Now, on one hand, maybe you're going to need it sometime. That's very true. So that's another reason. But also, to have a well-rounded body and to have a well-rounded person that you've trained up, you are going to be naturally able to adapt to what you see in front of you. And that's really the goal. The goal is not to make like this, oh, I'm going, like in the movies, like I'm going to use tiger style. No, it's basically you're going through the stuff and you're adapting to what's happening in the situation, right? So when people, because adaptation is very, very important, but these are two different types of adaptation. People who are pretty knowledgeable about martial arts are always talking about this type of adaptation, being flexible, not being married to any one type of thing, right? People who don't know exactly what they're doing are going to probably say, do this, not that, right? But really, especially with weapon combat, you can get away with a lot. All right, so that is all I've got here. Do we have another? We'll take one more question here, I think. And I think we got to everything here. Yeah. Do we have any other questions that we want to get in before we end for the day? Okay. Are we good? All right. So there we go. A socially distanced workout. Felt definitely good for us, even though we're definitely out of step here, but we'll get into it again. Nice day, everything like that. Thank you everybody for joining us. We will see you next week. Thanks everybody here in the panel. Congratulations to all the new students at TPLA. We will see you around the forums. So if that is all for us today, I will go ahead and stop the live stream. Have a good weekend, everybody. Patience, practice, perseverance. Happy sabering.